New sensational details surrounding the mysterious death of Hollywood legend and 1950s sex symbol Marilyn Monroe have once again become the subject of heated debate in the global media. The reason for this is the publication of a book by writer Ann Sun Choi, The Los Angeles Coroner, Thomas Noguchi, and Death in Hollywood, which reveals previously unknown facts about the actress's final hours and how the official investigation was conducted. The main protagonist in these events was Thomas Noguchi, the legendary medical examiner who was nicknamed the Coroner to the Stars in the United States. In August 1962, when the body of 36-year-old Monroe was found in her home in Brentwood, Noguchi was the deputy chief coroner of Los Angeles County and was only a year older than the actress herself. He was tasked with determining the exact cause of death of the woman who, at the time, was considered one of the most famous and mysterious figures in American cinema. As Noguchi recalls, he made his official conclusion quickly. The cause of death was determined to be acute barbiturate poisoning, and the incident was classified as a probable suicide. However, as he now admits, deep down he always had doubts. And although many facts pointed to the suicide theory, there was no definitive certainty. Moreover, he himself claims that the investigation was conducted under tacit pressure from above. Influential people, according to him, did not allow him to fully investigate all the circumstances. For reference, a coroner in the United States is an official responsible for investigating deaths under suspicious, violent, or unclear circumstances. Unlike a medical examiner who must have medical training and is involved only in forensic medical investigations, a coroner may have legal, police, or administrative training and oversees the entire investigation process, including the work of experts. The case of Marilyn Monroe remains one of the most sensational and controversial mysteries of the 20th century. Over the past 6 decades, a whole layer of conspiracy theories has grown up around this tragedy, from an alleged accident to versions of murder, allegedly linked to the Kennedy brothers. Today, Thomas Noguchi is 98 years old, and in January he will celebrate his 99th birthday. Only now has he decided to speak openly about his memories, about the regrets he has accumulated over decades, and about the possibility that the conclusion he signed in 1962 was not the absolute truth. Young coroner Thomas Noguchi, who in the early 1960s was just beginning to establish his reputation as Hollywood's star pathologist, was stunned when he entered his office that morning and found an urgent note on his desk. Sunday morning seemed like it would be a quiet one. There were already several bodies in the morgue awaiting scheduled autopsies. But this case required immediate attention. The note contained a name, Marilyn Monroe. And this was not just another patient. Noguchi was about to work with the body of a woman whose image epitomized an entire era. She had died just a few hours earlier, and now he was tasked with uncovering the cause of her sudden death. The urgency was surprising and alarming. Usually even high-profile cases went through the proper stages, but here the order was immediate. In the investigator's report accompanying the body, everything looked dry and emotionless, as official documents should. White woman, blue eyes, height 160 centimeters, weight 54 kilograms. On the bedside table were numerous pill bottles, including a completely empty bottle of Nembutal, pentobarbital, a powerful sleeping pill, and a half-empty bottle of chloral hydrate. a powerful sedative. From the accounts of police officers, Noguchi learned that Marilyn was found naked, lying face down on the bed, with her arms stretched out in front of her. Under her palm was a telephone receiver, as if she had been trying to call someone in the last minutes of her life. It was established that she had received a prescription for Nembutal from her doctor just 2 days before her death. The day before the tragedy, she had spoken to her psychiatrist and, according to him, was deeply depressed. The picture seemed almost obvious, a suspected suicide. But an autopsy was required for an official conclusion. Noguchi approached the case meticulously. Using a magnifying glass, he carefully examined the skin, especially the bends of the elbows, thighs, and spaces between the fingers, where drug addicts often inject drugs. No traces of injections were found. Then, with a surgical scalpel, he made the usual Y-shaped incision, exposing the internal organs. The first discrepancy appeared unexpectedly. There were no visible traces of drugs in the stomach or intestines. This cast doubt on the idea of an overdose, as a whole collection of vials had been found next to the body. Continuing the examination, Noguchi noticed other details. Marilyn was missing her gallbladder. The organ had been removed during surgery a year earlier, as evidenced by a small scar on her abdomen. Following protocol, he sent tissue and fluid samples for toxicological testing, and despite the oddities, still leaned toward the theory of a lethal dose of sleeping pills. However, when the results came back, the situation became even more confusing. Los Angeles County Chief Toxicologist Raymond Abernathy did indeed find lethal concentrations of pentobarbital and chlorohydrate in Marilyn's blood, but he did not conduct additional tests on the stomach tissue and other internal organs that Noguchi had specifically collected. Abernathy considered it unnecessary. This posed a dilemma for the young coroner. On the one hand, he felt a sense of responsibility as the pathologist who had performed the autopsy himself. On the other hand, he did not dare to openly disagree with his senior and authoritative colleague. Noguchi understood that additional testing could reveal important details, possibly even changing the official version. But he remained silent. In the end, he classified Marilyn Monroe's death as a probable suicide, adding the word probable to the wording as a cautious hint at his own doubts, which remained with him. Marilyn Monroe was perhaps the most famous woman on the planet, and remains a symbol of an entire era even decades after her death. Her image, the embodiment of glamour, femininity, and vulnerability, was familiar to every resident of the Western world. So it's no surprise that on the night of August 5th, 1962, when the world learned of her sudden death, Los Angeles and all of America were in shock. The next morning, the phones at newsrooms, police stations, City Hall, and movie studios were ringing off the hook with calls from journalists, colleagues, and fans. Within hours, versions of what had happened began to multiply. The most incredible conspiracy theories were generated, and panic grew in society. As film historian Lois Banner notes, the tragedy had not only an emotional, but also a frightening social effect. After the news of Monroe's death, the suicide rate in Los Angeles doubled. Rumors circulated among the masses about the possible involvement of influential forces in her death. From the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and the Kennedy family to mafia, structures in jealous Hollywood circles. Some suggested that the actress had been eliminated so that she would not reveal dangerous secrets related to the political elite. Under pressure from public outcry, The authorities were forced to hold an urgent press conference to officially announce the investigation's findings. Speaking to reporters, Los Angeles Chief Medical Examiner Theodore Curfey and pathologist Thomas Noguchi spoke about the actress's unstable psychological state. They mentioned her prolonged depression, chronic insomnia, dangerous addiction to sedatives, previously known suicidal thoughts, and even recorded suicide attempts in the past. The official conclusion was unequivocal. Based on the data collected, Marilyn most likely decided to take this step again. But this time, she could not be saved. It was assumed that this version would calm the public and stop the flow of speculation. But the effect was the opposite. The scandal only gained momentum. Years later, Thomas Noguchi himself admitted that he felt the case was unfinished. He intended to conduct additional research that, for some reason, had not been carried out at the time. However, by that point, the toxicologist working on the case had already destroyed all tissue and biological samples. Noguchi was convinced that without a complete toxicological analysis, it was impossible to rule out with absolute certainty that Monroe's death could have been caused not by pills she took herself, but by an injection of a lethal dose of the drug. But there was no time left. The most important evidence was irretrievably lost. Thus, with the official conclusion of probable suicide, the case of Marilyn Monroe became one of Hollywood's most sensational and mysterious secrets. In the following years, Thomas Noguchi, who had an illustrious career in forensic science, became chief coroner of Los Angeles County. In this position, he supervised a number of the most high-profile and resonant autopsies of the XX century. Among them, the investigation of the death of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, actor John Belushi, the mysterious death of actress Natalie Wood, as well as the barbaric murder of Sharon Tate, the young wife of director Roman Polanski, who was 9 months pregnant. She and several others were brutally stabbed to death by Charles Manson's gang, which shocked America and symbolized the end of the era of innocence of Hollywood. However, in 1962, when the body of Marilyn Monroe was delivered to the morgue, Thomas Noguchi was a very different man. He was just beginning his journey, was on probation, and actually took the place of a junior deputy coroner. He did not yet have a big name in the professional world, and on a personal level, he was just beginning to pay his dues for the right to be part of the elite of the Los Angeles forensic world. Nevertheless, realizing that he had been entrusted with a matter of unprecedented importance, the body of a woman whose name was known all over the planet, he could not rid himself of the oppressive feelings of guilt and anxiety. Doubts had settled in him during the autopsy and had lingered for years. Again and again, the agonizing questions surfaced in his mind. Could she have been killed? And didn't I unwittingly become a pawn in someone's carefully planned game? This inner dialogue is quoted in her book, The Los Angeles Coroner, by writer Ann Soon Choi. Doubts were shared by other authors as well. Thus, the famous master of documentary investigation, James Patterson, in his book, The Last Days of Marilyn Monroe, puzzled why the body of the world star allowed not the most experienced specialist and a young, virtually unknown deputy coroner. For Patterson, it seemed strange and perhaps even deliberate. Эти мысли не покидали и самого Ногучи. Более того, долгие десятилетия он жил с тихим, но постоянным страхом. А вдруг когда-нибудь он сам окажется в списке подозреваемых в причастности к загадочной смерти Монро. Но этого не произошло. Карьера Ногучи развивалась стремительно, и со временем он достиг популярности, которая в определенном смысле соперничала с известностью тех знаменитостей, чьи смерти он расследовал. Размышляя о грани между правдой и вымыслом, Эн Сун Чой рисует портрет Ногучи как сложной и противоречивой личности. По ее словам, он был неординарным человеком, в равной степени гениальным и тщеславным, искренне стремившимся к истине и одновременно жаждавшим признания. Ему было важно не только делать свою работу блестяще, но и чтобы мир видел и оценивал его заслуги. During his long and controversial career, renowned forensic scientist Thomas Noguchi lost his job twice, facing serious professional and personal challenges. The first time was in 1969, shortly after the high-profile assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, which became one of the most high-profile political tragedies in U.S. history. During that period, Noguchi, who served as chief medical examiner, became the center of attention for law enforcement and the public. According to Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney Martin Weeks, Noguchi allegedly behaved unusually. In his office, he was seen smiling and even dancing while telling colleagues, "I'm going to be famous. I hope he dies." The senator was indeed killed, which sparked many rumors and speculations surrounding the expert's behavior. It was also rumored that Noguchi dreamed of vivisecting Lynn Hollinger, the county executive with whom he had a tense dispute over the budget. Noguchi's wife later claimed that the reasons for his dismissal and forced departure were due to racial discrimination. Thomas Noguchi himself was born and trained in medicine in Japan before emigrating to the United States, where he faced prejudice and restrictions because of his background. In response to the unfair treatment, he went to court and managed to get his job reinstated. In addition, a petition was organized in his support by the Japanese American community of Los Angeles, which gathered many signatures. In 1982, however, the problems recurred. Noguchi again began to express controversial opinions about the celebrity death cases he investigated, which raised doubts about the objectivity and reliability of his conclusions. As a result, he was demoted from chief medical examiner to medical specialist. Nevertheless, he continued his career, chairing the Department of Pathology and teaching at the University of Southern California, as well as at the University of California, Los Angeles. In addition to his academic endeavors, Noguchi has held senior positions in professional societies. He served as president of the American National Association of Forensic Scientists, attesting to his credibility and importance in the professional community. In 1999, the Emperor of Japan awarded him the Order of the Sacred Treasure, one of the country's highest honors, in recognition of his outstanding contribution to the development of forensic medicine. In the same year, Thomas Noguchi retired but remained active in science. From 2010 to 2022, he chaired the World Association for Medical Law, WML. As Ann Soon Choi notes in her book on forensic medicine and Noguchi's biography, he continued to conduct research and publish articles in an effort to live to be a centenarian. But the main question that remains open decades after his involvement in the investigations is how much credence can we give to Noguchi's conclusions, given the many controversies and doubts. This is especially true of one of the most famous mysteries of the 20th century, the death of legendary actress Marilyn Monroe. Over the years, many theories have emerged around her death, dozens of versions, sometimes contradicting each other. Perhaps the right question to ask is not who to believe, but is there any chance today of getting a definitive and reliable answer after so many years? Thank you for watching to the end. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell so you don't miss new videos. And there are more amazing stories to come. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.